inspired to become a teacher really by one single conversation that I wasn't even a part of. As my relatives were visiting one year, I think it may have been Thanksgiving or something, one of my cousins had recently had her first baby, and that was the first baby of the family since I was born, which I was the youngest of the cousins. And I was just sitting over playing with him on the couch, and I overheard my cousin say, "Wow, Robin is really good at helping things that can't help themselves." While I don't believe that kids can't help themselves by any means, and especially the more I teach, that did kind of lead me down this path. It started actually with working with animals. I went to school to be a behavior scientist, and my specialty was animal behavior. And then my undergraduate degree was in education, special education specifically. But as I got into the behavior of animals, the more I missed working with kids. My favorite part about teaching science is teaching kids to question the world around them, to ask themselves why, and then also to introduce them to the possibilities that is science. One of my favorite projects we do at the very beginning of the year is when they decorate their notebook. And I say, it can be whatever you want, but it has to do with science. And a lot of them already have predetermined ideas of what science is. And they all kind of, oh gosh, we don't want to do that. And then I say, okay, here, I have a challenge for you. Tell me what you want to draw, and then I'm going to tell you how that relates to science. And so far, nobody has ever been able to come up with something that wouldn't relate to science. Just teaching them those connections is so exciting. But then as they explore and as they learn, I build in that why and that real world problem solving. So every unit, yes, we might do the basics. Like for example, this is our last unit where they did do food webs, which was the basic idea of can they create a food web? But then I extended that to, okay, now you've created a food web. I'm gonna give you a scenario that is gonna destroy your food web. What are you gonna do to try to save it? And so giving them this real world example. And then one of the really fun things is I got to go and poke holes in their scenarios and tell them why, as a scientist, I did not think that was gonna work, or maybe that would cause a problem that they didn't realize. And then once they kind of get that questioning in, that wondering why, that saying, well, expand on what you're talking about, then they get to give presentations to their peers, and their peers, having seen me model that exact thing, how scientists question each other and challenge each other to make their science stronger, they get to do that with their classmates as well. I'd like to think that engaging students might be my strongest teaching skill. And part of that is because I figure out other ways of engaging them in the content that maybe they haven't thought of before. A lot of that is the project-based learning that I talk about. We do STEM challenges where the kids learn perseverance and they learn teamwork. And we always talk about how scientists have to work together to collaborate to get science done, so that even if maybe you don't like the people you're working with, you're still gonna have to figure out how to collaborate, because that's a big part of science. And I also try to give them a lot of really hands-on learning that they can, really trying to give them a lot of problems that is gonna involve discussion and some hands-on learning that they can remember. And then our current example of great engagement. So like I said earlier, I went to school to learn about animal behavior. So my favorite unit is when we get to animal behavior and we start talking about adaptations, we start talking about animals and ecosystems, and then I do some special units with animal behavior specifically. And how I really build engagement for this very exciting unit is they get little baby chicks that they study the behavior of. So when we talk about structural adaptations and behavioral adaptations, we tie it directly to, well, what have we observed from these chicks that are in our classroom?